Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we have ourselves an info dump courtesy of PC Gamer for The Outer Worlds. On top of that, you are watching gameplay of The Outer Worlds in the background thanks to Game Informer Hype Mode Activate. If you missed my in-depth analysis, that will be linked in the description down below along with this article. Lots of details to uncover for The Outer Worlds. It's coming from all over the place, so let's get right into this and have some questions answered. There are telltale signs all over that you're playing a game designed by Tim Cain and Leonard Boyarsky. If you know what to look for: 1. There's never just a single path through a mission, but always the golden trifecta: fighting, talking, and sneaking. 2. A unique vibe stemming from what Boyarsky calls the combination of my dark morbidity and Tim's silliness. 3. Bending over backwards to prioritize player choice in a world that's often silly, despite being all shades of gray. We can't seem to get away from it, not that we want to. That's what appeals to us, Boyarsky says. The ability not to only make your own decisions, but also not having a clear-cut, what is the best choice here? That's where players have to really start thinking, what do I want to do as a character, as opposed to, I always play the good guy, so I'm always going to pick helping people. The reason I wanted to put this one on display is because it highlights the design philosophy that is driving The Outer Worlds forward, which is player choice. It's not just about swapping out your equipment, leveling up your character, which we'll get into a little bit later into this video. It's about how you interact with characters, how you approach a situation, how you handle a situation in the moment, and all the potential outcomes of said situation, which is then highlighted in this next bit. You were part of a ship that got lost, Boyarsky says. You've been frozen for 70 years. If you're frozen for more than 10 years, it's a really bad thing. This guy figured a way to save you, and he needs you to help him get more chemicals to help save the rest of the colonists. But you don't have to help him do that. You can go to the evil board, the Halcyon corporate board, and turn this guy in and see what happens if you do that. You get lots of money, Cain adds. So as I highlighted in my in-depth analysis, this older gentleman does save you from some type of cryo state, which then he also mentions he's being chased by bounty hunters, meaning that is why you can turn him in and get a ton of money. It appears that maybe he's not as crucial to the main story if you can turn him in, but I digress. Choice, consequence, awesome stuff. Now we get into some more juicy details about the gameplay. One of the two main planets has been terraformed and is kinder to human life, while the other hasn't, making it home to more and more dangerous alien predators. Your ship will serve as a home base for you and your companions, much like Mass Effect's Normandy. You'll be able to chat with your companions and pick up quests for them, as they all have their own reason for tagging along with you. So let's start off with one of the two main planets. During my in-depth analysis, I was taking a look at the colony itself, which was naturally more kind to human life since there's a lot of people living there, versus when we go to a place that's covered in terrifying looking creatures. So I believe that's a clear representation of these two planets and what's going on with each of those for those who want to put a picture to it. Next is the ship itself. We actually see this on display during the gameplay from Game Informer when the player character approaches one of our companions, Ellie, which we actually saw in the announcement trailer. You can engage in dialogue with her. You have a dumb option, which is like, hell yeah, this is what I've been looking for all my life. But it's nice to know that we're going to have a hub to have our companions gathered in. I noticed on the left side of the screen during this gameplay, you can have more than one companion join you, and apparently companions have special abilities, which we'll also talk about in a little bit. But furthermore, companion quests, can't say enough about how happy I am with this game. It is a worthy successor so far to Fallout New Vegas, at least on paper. In an hour demo of The Outer Worlds, I watched them head to a small frontier town to respond to a distress call, then take a mission from a scientist to retrieve his previous research into hunger-suppressing toothpaste. Like everyone in The Outer Worlds, he works for a corporation. Everything is branded, and the mega corporation that sells you lunch is also likely manufacturing weapons or drugs. The reason I wanted to include that is because for those of you who want to go watch the raw gameplay on Game Informer, just know that's what's happening there. There is some dialogue, but some of the guys talk over it during the video, so if you're trying to fill in the blanks, get some context on what the player character is actually doing, and get a bit more of an idea of what's happening with the choices being made, now you know. Getting that research back involved sneaking into a facility, shooting some monsters that have gotten loose, and convincing the facility guards that you're on their side, which led to their grisly death at the hand of some bandits patrolling outside. The article goes on to also highlight that that's not how the situation had to go. Of course, it didn't have to play out like that. You could shoot your way through instead of sneaking, not bother talking to any guards, or actually ally up with them. Or you could promise to help a captured outlaw in the facility and then betray her. Opportunities for double crossing abound. This is what I'm talking about. Look at all this stuff you could miss in one single scenario in the Outer Worlds. This has been what we've been looking for so many freaking years. I feel like it's been forever. And finally, someone, of course, Obsidian, gets that, and they execute on it perfectly, taking literally everything that was great from Fallout New Vegas and putting it right into this game. Oh, okay, next part. There are weapons that use light, medium, and heavy bullet ammo, as well as energy weapons and melee. I saw two of the latter, a lightsaber-esque sword with a green laser blade and a scythe with a sick dripping blade of red energy, fit for a sci-fi Grim Reaper. This is great writing. The damage you do will be based both on the stats of the particular weapon and your character's stats. Like in BioShock, weapons are moddable to do fire damage, shock damage, and so on, but you can also upgrade them to higher damage tiers. There is a nice zip to laser weapons, and all the graphical effects look great, like they're straight out of a modern pulp sci-fi serial. So we've got ourselves some ammo type, we have multiple weapon types, and on top of that, damage is dealt based on both stats and the particular weapon that you upgrade. I really like this hybrid because they're emphasizing character builds, but at the same time allowing you to invest resources in decking out a weapon that you really are falling in love with. But I'll go on a little bit more about gameplay after this very exciting bit. While your character has stats that affect damage, this isn't RPG combat with dice rolls governing whether your perfectly aimed shots hit or miss. Line up a headshot and it'll hit. But for players who care more about the role-playing than shooting, the developers came up with a time dilation mechanic akin to Fallout's VATS. You can slow down time to help you aim. And while time's dilated, a bit of UI pops up next to the enemy you're aiming at with info like their HP. It's an easy way to target individual body parts, though aiming is still manual, unlike in VATS. Let's begin with the fact that there isn't dice rolls governing whether your shots hit or miss. Obsidian learned their lesson from Alpha Protocol, where it was very strange when you were aiming at an enemy and shooting at them. A lot of the times the bullets didn't register. It could get frustrating. It kind of broke the player out of the experience. What's happening? I'm aiming right at you. Why aren't you taking damage, even in the slightest? But they took a smart approach to it by, as mentioned in the earlier part of this video, having your stats govern damage, how much you do, how good you are with certain types of weapons, alongside the weapon itself and how much you buff that up. So it's still about how you build your character. It's maintaining that, but it's not sacrificing keeping you involved in the gameplay, in the world itself. And that's important. Furthermore, the time dilation mechanic, a lot of people were wondering what the name of it was. It is very much just like VATS, and I think it's a great addition to this type of game because a lot of people want to pick it up who are traditional RPG players that don't play a lot of shooters, and they may not be the best at shooters. So something like this is definitely a must add for them. It also adds a little bit of zing to their gameplay, I'll say, because while I thought the shooting looked snappy and good, as well as weapons being very satisfying and varied, you don't know how long that can go on for. And just having that one extra mechanic that's unique enough that is akin to Fallout, like that, is good to have, especially when there's really nothing like that. So if we have a second take on it, that's not too bad. One of the last features they showed us in detail is a new system called flaws, which Kane says he wanted to put into a game for years. Flaws are optional character traits you can accept after something happens in the game. For example, after fighting a group of vicious space dogs called Raptidons, you might get the option to take the flaw Raptophobia, which will make you weaker in fights against them from that point on. Flaws are permanent, and you can have up to 3 of them or 5 on a harder difficulty, but of course there's a trade-off. You get to take on an extra perk immediately. A flaw can be a fear of heights. There's my favorite, robophobia. We also have afraid of the dark. The game may go, hey, you seem to catch on fire a lot. Would you like to be susceptible to flame damage? If so, you can have another perk right now. Now, there's a little blurb at the end that has a lot of extra things that the writer had learned about the Outer Worlds that I'll fully go into at the end of this video, but one bit I want to bring up right now is that they mentioned there are 6 skills, strength, intelligence, etc., and for every 20 points you put into one, up to 100, you'll gain a new perk. Now, we don't know how many points we do earn per leveling up, but I imagine it's a bit slower to encourage people to engage in that flaw process, which I really like. I think the best characters in video games are flawed ones because it makes them more humanizing, and I like how they've tied that to the gameplay and allow you to trade off almost like the traits in Fallout New Vegas, where you're good at one thing, bad at another. The area housing the research facility wasn't a narrow, linear path. There was definitely room to roam, with enemies and other locations to loot around the map. Outer Worlds isn't one massive contiguous world like today's open world games from what I've seen. That is a good thing. This is not a game made by 800 people, and the smaller environments look intimately handcrafted but are still big enough to hold side quests and reward exploration. One of the most exciting things the developers talked about was the freedom they're trying to bake into the Outer Worlds. A lot of the map is opened up right after you get out of your ship, so you don't have to follow the story immediately, Boyarsky says. There are points of no return, but we like to keep your options open for as long as possible. This was a huge question. Is this game open world? It is not, and I fully agree that it's a good thing. I get that open world is the thing. I get open world sells, but that doesn't mean it is the best, and that's coming from someone who adores open world titles. Kind of tails off what I've always said about procedural generation. It feels like quantity, not quality. Procedural generation isn't always bad. For example, a game like Dead Cells, I personally did enjoy, but it's very rare I enjoy something with procedural generation. The Outer Worlds having condensed, focused areas, something akin to, I'd say, Dishonored, a game that has those levels and there is choice for the player gameplay wise, story wise. It's almost like with the limitless potential, it's a sandbox area and it's great to be a part of and also explore. That's what I've been looking for personally as a gamer. I can't speak for everyone else. I'm getting a bit of open world burnout because literally every single game wants an open world. So thank you, Obsidian, for trying to break the mold at the very least. There is a degree of level scaling on enemies, but within limits, which means you'll be able to travel to difficult places early if you want and reap rewards if you don't die. So like most RPGs, there's a bit of rubber banding, but if you do manage to survive, then that'll benefit you. And now for that blurb that contains a lot of additional information on this title. Let's rip right through it. It's out in 2019. It's an Unreal Engine 4 game. Your protagonist is not voiced. There is a special class of science weapons that will have special ridiculous effects like a shrink ray. Are you joking me, Obsidian? There's a full-on character creator, even though it's first person only. You'll see your character in the inventory, and if you leave the game idling too long. Your companions don't have separate inventories. Taking companions with you just gives you more inventory space to work with yourself. If companions really dislike the decision you make, they'll leave and go back to the ship. You can persuade them to see things your way. No romancing companions. They did consider it, but decided against it. Companions each have a special attack, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video. One named Felix does a double drop kick, but you can also equip them with whatever weapons you want. Hacking and lockpicking don't have mini games and are simply based on your attributes. We actually saw this on display for both aspects in the gameplay from Game Informer. We saw that pretty much the lockpicking skill was high enough where all the player did was hold X and boom, the door had unlocked. There is the 6 skills thing, which I mentioned during the flaw process. As in the creator's past games, you can play as a dumb character with stupid dialogue options. Your companions react appropriately, like so.
We're not all as simple as the captain. What's actually going on here, Anton?
They're still not sure if it will be possible to play through the game completely pacifist, but you'll almost definitely have to at least kill some robots. I'll be curious to see if Obsidian can achieve a full pacifist playthrough. That's a tough design decision. And Tim Kaine wants you to know there are lots of drugs, but he's not going to pressure you to take them. So yeah, a lot of gameplay, a lot of info, way more than I expected. I didn't really feel I'd see anything on this game until E3 because I feel this game is coming out probably after that point, since even though it's a multi-platform game, Microsoft owns Obsidian and they probably want this game on the main stage as one of the titles that likely has some exclusivity deal with Microsoft, probably something along the lines of DLC, whether it's day one or down the line. I digress though. This game, man, I'm so excited. As I read every article, go through this gameplay, I see it all playing out in front of me, and it's like, this is the game I've wanted forever. It's just, I'm losing my words. This is what happens now. I just can't English properly when I'm so excited. I used to just scream, but now I'm just like, how do I speak? Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this brand new information in the comments down below. Fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Are you pumped for the Outer Worlds or what? Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.